Hello everyone, welcome back to the Mr. Flipwagon YouTube channel. I'm Mr. Flipwagon, but you can call me Mel. And today's video is going to be a little bit different, since I want this to be the first video in a new series where we take a look at different Easter eggs hidden in the beautiful maps of this game. These Easter eggs can range from auxiliary ships to famous buildings to aircraft, or even small random details hidden in various places on these maps. This series is inspired by iChaseGamings' Easter egg hunt video series. He unfortunately only made around 4 videos though, with his last being uploaded 7 years ago. It was a series I thoroughly enjoyed, so I wanted to kinda finish what he started, or at least continue with it. In his series, he covered the maps Trap, Shatter, Atlantic, Big Race, and Sea of Fortune, so I personally will not be covering them unless they go through graphics updates that would change them significantly. Anyway, onto the voyage at hand. In the first episode of this series, I will be guiding you and showing all the Easter eggs I found on the map New Dawn. Our first destination is this little island at grid square B3. There seems to be a little dock here leading up to a small base. But what is most interesting is this little low quality ship that kinda looks like a transport of some kind. On the bridge there's a little placard that says SS Mojave. After a quick Google search you can find this drawing, which looks quite reminiscent to the SS Mojave in game, along with a few other ship names of, I suppose, the same class. Unfortunately, this image was uploaded on Pinterest and there wasn't a lot of extra information about what class of ship this is. A bit later I managed to find another image featuring a ship that looks quite similar to the Mojave drawing, albeit with some minor differences. This image was posted in a ship modeling forum, and that is how I discovered what the Mojave was. The SS Mojave was one of many Design 1001 ships. These were known as wooden-hulled cargo ships, and they were built partially to compensate for the losses of cargo ships due to the German submarine attacks during the First World War. The SS Mojave was built by Seaborn Shipbuilding Company in Tacoma, Washington, and while I found a source detailing that she was completed in August 1918, little is detailed about her actual service life. The Mojave would be abandoned in 1923, but in what condition she was abandoned and where she went, we do not know. A bit south from the previous island lies a little heart-shaped island. This thing was originally not here when this map was introduced to the game. It was actually added along with the graphics update in patch 12.7, and this Easter egg is probably one of the more well-known Easter eggs on this map. Even further south, at the grid square D4, lies an island with a beach, and on that beach you can see a little board game featuring the Bad Advice Captain. This little board game is a reference to the 1995 movie Jumanji. I personally haven't seen it, so I won't try to explain the plot in detail, but it's a magical board game that is the center of the plot of that movie. If you have seen the movie, feel free to describe what it does in the comments below. In grid squares F2 and G2, you will find an island with a US Naval Aviation Base. On this base you can find some cool aircraft like F-6F Hellcats and even a B-24 Liberator bomber, albeit this one seems to be a slightly modified BB-41Y variant, which was used by the Navy for ASW, anti-ship patrols and photo reconnaissance. In the harbor next to the aviation base lay 2 small tugboats in port, with the names Pluto numbered 271. These are supposed to represent Design 320 45-foot tugboats built in the US. They could be either designated with the ST or a YTL prefix, depending on who owned the things. So this thing would probably be designated either ST-271 or YTL-271. Unfortunately, according to my sources, an ST-271 was never even assigned, and a YTL-271 doesn't even seem to exist. So unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the Pluto even existed at all. It is worth noting though that many of these Design 320 tugs have no historical record, so perhaps the Pluto may still be out there, or was maybe actually built. Who knows? Traveling back north, we sail past the island that borders grid squares D6 and E6, and on this island you may find the jaws of what looks like a megalodon, although if you compared it to the trees next to it, you'll find that it's way bigger than any megalodon jaws ever found. Could this be the jaws of a super megalodon? Or maybe the model was just scaled up so people could actually find it. On the island bordering the D7 in E7 grid squares lies a small town, but still to the right of it are these stone-looking torus structures. These are a reference to the Rye Stones located in the Micronesian Yap Islands. These are carved from crystallized limestones, and some of them are actually quite big and have a big ceremonial significance. Now moving on to the town, or specifically the harbor, we can find quite a few small Easter eggs in the form of various ships. The first one here, we will take a look at this small ship named Tiny Boy 2. It is based on this drawing of a so-called limit Seiner, Seiner being a type of fishing boat, and the limit meaning that it was limited to being 58 feet long or less, according to Seattle fishing laws. The Tiny Boy 2 was designed by H.C. Hansen, who was a well-known and respected naval architect in the US Pacific Northwest. He designed upwards of 3,000 ships. Regarding the ships Hansen designed, the Watkin Museum states, and I quote, "Hansen designed vessels were not only seaworthy, but visually graceful. As a result, many are still esteemed and in active service around the globe." And let's just say after looking at some of the other boats he designed, I kinda want one. The next ship we'll take a look at is slightly north from the Tiny Boy 2. It's a two-masted ship with what looks like the name Evelina by the stern. I believe this ship to be the Evelina M. Goulart, I think that's how it's pronounced. The Evelina was built in 1927 in an Essex shipyard and served for over 50 years, mainly as a sword fishing vessel. Unfortunately, her service would end unexpectedly, as the 1985 Hurricane Gloria would damage her stern significantly. She'd be tied up to a wharf in New England and have her engine removed, but at some point her bilge pumps would fail and she'd sink. Luckily, she was refloated and saved and is now on display at the Essex Shipbuilding Museum. Unfortunately, she's not in the best condition. The last ship in this harbor is this single-masted sailing ship. While there is text on the side of the ship, I had quite a tough time making out what it actually said. I eventually found it though, and it turns out to be a Bristol Channel pilot cutter named the Carad. The Carad was built in the UK, in Bristol, in 1904. Pilot cutters were essentially small boats used to transfer pilots to and from merchant vessels in the Bristol Channel. The job of these pilots was essentially to help guide merchant vessels through the dangerous waters. They worked essentially like experts regarding the Bristol Channel and its dangers. So these cutters needed to be small, maneuverable, and able to sail in all weather conditions and do all that with a very small crew. Specifically, these things only needed 2 crew members to sail properly. She would be preserved in Exeter's Maritime Museum, but eventually fell into disrepair. Fortunately though, a restoration project started in the late 90s and she was relaunched in 2006, and she's been able to participate in various sailing events during the years after. The final destination for this video is by far the most sinister. On the island located on the southern side of grid square F8, you can see an SOS drawn in the sand, along with a stranded vessel and a bonfire. If you look closely, you may even be able to see a volleyball with the WoW's logo as its face. This is a reference to Wilson the volleyball from the movie Cast Away. The stranded vessel seems to be a motorboat of some sort. On the hull you can clearly see the name Susan written along with the designation 567269 or maybe 567249, or perhaps even S67269 or something like that. I believe it to be a Mark I twin-screw 40-foot utility boat built in the US. What is strange though is that there were never even any boats designated with a 6-number registration code, let alone with the name Susan. What I have found though is something with a striking resemblance to this Easter egg. In the year 2020, 3 guys were stranded on a small island in the Pacific after their boat ran out of fuel and strayed off course. While on the island, the 3 men wrote out a giant SOS in the sand, which was luckily spotted by an Australian military helicopter that had been conducting exercises. While the 3 men had only been missing for 3 days, the coincidences in the imagery and the in-game map is startling. From the relative locations of the shelters from the SOS to the boat's color. In the end, if you believe that this is merely a coincidence or if it's an actual reference, is for you to decide. Those were all the Easter eggs I could find on the New Dawn map. Did I miss something? If so, feel free to tell me in the comments down below. I also want to thank player Milsnerf, who helped me in gathering sources and finding the actual ships that are featured in this video. Feel free to also express your thoughts on this new series and even what map I should take a look at next. I've been Mr. Flipwagon. May Saint Anhalt bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.